125. That's the number of books I read in 2020. I want to share 7 tips that I use to read more books. Whether you want to go from 5 books to 10 books a year, or maybe even over 100, I hope these tips help you read more every single day. Tip number 1, go digital. One of the biggest changes I made in my life when it came to books was go from physical to digital books. Back in 2011, I started traveling every week for work. I used to travel Monday through Friday, and every week I had this chunk of time while I was in transit. I was either on a long flight coast to coast, a 2-hour train ride from Philadelphia to Washington, D.C., or sometimes even a subway ride in New York going from Penn Station to Brooklyn. Here I was, spending all this time in transit. Now, if I had to carry a physical book in my lean travel luggage, I would pack maybe 1 or maximum 2 books, as much as I wished otherwise. Going from physical books to digital meant that I had unlimited books at my disposal to read. If I didn't like a certain book, I could just close it, open another book, and start reading. So if you want to start reading more books, I highly recommend getting a Kindle or an iPad like myself. My tip number 2 is to read what you love. I realized early on that I didn't have to read every single book that was on the best-selling list or whatever was the most popular book at that time. I always read for my own pleasure. And my honest advice to you is just read whatever book you enjoy. It doesn't have to be the book that everyone around you is reading or even talking about. For me, this is a combination of genres. I love fantasy, gardening, styling, and fiction. More specifically, romance. The classics, I love a good Darcy and Elizabeth story, and the modern ones. I also gravitate towards books that talk about creativity and productivity, but I find it difficult to finish them in one go. Due to the nature of the material, it can be a little dry at times. That brings me to my next point. Don't try to finish a book if you don't like it or it's boring. Just let it go. I used to struggle with this and thought I had to finish every single book that I read. It's been a more recent change in my mindset that it's okay to just let it go. I would rather read one of my favorite books that give my heart joy than read something that doesn't add value to my life. My third tip is to use audiobooks. I will be very honest, I'm quite the late adapter to audiobooks. Just because I love the feeling of getting immersed in a story as I'm reading it. But if I'm doing chores around the house or spending a morning puttering in my garden, I adore listening to audiobooks. A long, lonely road trip can be especially enjoyable when I'm listening to non-fiction books that are narrated by the author themselves. It feels like you have this amazing companion in the car that is giving you life advice. My fourth tip is for all those people out there who are saying, but I can't afford to buy these many books. And you know what? I get it. I have been in your shoes. And you know who my best friend was during that time? My local library. I love my local library. And the years when I couldn't afford to indulge myself in buying new books, I just went to the library. Now, they have gotten even better, and you can use your iPad with the following apps like Libby and Cloud Library to borrow ebooks and audiobooks. I still, to this day, get books from the app. It has especially been a game changer during the pandemic where I couldn't physically go into the library. Ever since I introduced my dad to these apps, he loves them too, and is always reading or listening to audiobooks in his favorite spot in the garden. My fifth tip is for all of you out there who want to know the best place to find information about the books they want to read. Goodreads, according to me, is a great resource for finding different varieties of books. It is owned by Amazon, and no, this video is not sponsored by them. You can use their website or even their app on an iPhone or an iPad. You can read reviews, track your own progress, write reviews, and rate different books. Even create a I want to read list. This way, I always know which will be the next book that I want to read, and I don't have to go hunting for it once I am done reading my current book. My sixth tip is to find yourself a routine and stick with it. In my case, I read throughout the day. I start my day listening to an Audible while I'm making breakfast. I will read during lunch, later on as I'm putting my twins to bed, and almost always after dinner during weeknights. I try to watch my favorite shows and movies on the weekends, but weeknights are for reading only, rarely any TV. This is my routine. You can and should find one that works best with your lifestyle. My 7th tip is to read multiple books at one time. I know, this sounds a little crazy, but hear me out. This especially applies to nonfiction books because it can be a little dry to read in one go. I read one fiction book at a time. I usually like to finish it completely. But along with that, I mix in about 2 or sometimes even 3 nonfiction books. It helps me a lot because if I get bored with one, I just switch it out and read another one and can still get a gist of what the author is saying. Lastly, and I don't know if you need to hear this, but just read for yourself. Books are meant to give you joy and happiness. Don't feel guilty about enjoying certain authors or genres. You need to enjoy yourself. And when you do that, you will definitely be reading more books. I want to move the question on to you. How many books do you read in a year? And what tips help you to read more? Comment below and let me know. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching this video. I will see you next week. Have an amazing, amazing day. Bye-bye.